So I live in a military town, Norfolk, Virginia Beach, Virginia. If you've never heard of it, if you show up, hit me up. So because of that, I tend to meet a lot of people affiliated in some respects to the military, whether it's actually service members, their spouses, people whose parents have been in it, all walks of life affiliated with the military. Norfolk is home to the world's largest Navy base. And because of that, I've been able to meet, like I said, a lot of people affiliated. And one of the first times I ever did this was back, I think, in episode 15 of this show with Lindsay Germono of Germono Advertising. And I learned a lot about the military in that. And I've been able to, quote unquote, network with other people affiliated with the military, a lot of military spouses. And it's really cool because you meet new people because of that, and you learn new walks of life because of that. And today, on today's show, we got Kellie Artis of Millie, Millie. You guys can learn about them at Go. That's Go Millie, spelled like I just spelled it, MILLIE.com, which is a cool site that helps military families move. All the things about moving in military. By the way, sometimes it just happens overnight. I'm learning about all these things kind of as they happen too. And if you think you moving to a new job not affiliated with the military is a pain in the butt, imagine being in the military. And so how do you grow communities with that? How do you get people to follow what you're doing from a military perspective, from a business perspective? And so I talked with Kellie about this. We have a great discussion. It was a lot of fun. And stay to the end to figure out, well, what number I am on this silly little thing she wants me to do. Actually, I don't even know that we get to the number because she's not supposed to judge me, but I think she does. Anyway, without further ado, if you guys are learning or wanting to learn how to build communities in a genuine, authentic way all across the world, or at least the United States, definitely want to keep listening to this episode. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go! You're listening to Zack Miller Says. All right, so Millie, give me the kind of the genesis behind Millie.
Oh, the genesis was out of pain and problems and stress and challenges.
Well, you laugh now about it, so I mean that must be a good thing.
No, they're still all very much there. We're doing our best. We have a mantra of like silver lining and find the positive, just because that's like the only way to get through it. So military moves are challenging and tricky and super frequent. So we wanted to try to create a resource, some digital services, some physical service provider connections, like a marketplace to help alleviate some of the stress of a permanent change of station, which is what the military calls a relocation or a military move. So we have amassed, a library of content for military families. Our audience is typically the military spouse who, for whatever reason, kind of bears the brunt of the burden of the PCS. But if you think about it, the spouse is usually the one, the service member is focusing on the actual job that he or she will be overtaking in the coming months, and the family needs to reestablish itself quickly. And so typically that falls to whoever the primary caregiver is in the home. So that's our audience. We tried to create some resources to make that easier for them to do, and then also have sort of some on-the-ground connections for when they get there or if they need help from afar. So
it's interesting because a few years ago, I had Lindsay Germono on the show, and this is where I first was introduced to this concept that it's difficult for military spouses, it's difficult for military families. I think maybe like in the back of our minds we think that, but it wasn't like prominent that like, hey, like this person's doing this great service for us, but like we're making it a real pain in the tail for their lives to be easy. And so, can you walk me through like a scenario of okay, so you have to move. And then you have to like move immediately. Like what's kind of like, is there some sort of normalcy in this whole thing?
No. Okay. So typically, yes, you can kind of predict out a normal move season or move cycle. Usually it just all depends on the service member's career, which is fine. That's not anything to bemoan. It just, like you said, it makes everything else kind of challenging without having any like way of predicting a career path or a trajectory or where you're going to live. So typically, I don't know. So right now, what is it? We're in February. It's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, Zach.
Happy Valentine's Day. What?
Yeah. I really don't either, but
Side note, I hate marketing days. What I mean by marketing days are any days that are like categorized, making you do something that you probably wouldn't like. I think you should be thankful every day instead of just Thanksgiving. You should love your wife or your husband every day, not just because some marketing thing does. Rant
agree.
over.
We celebrated last night actually, just in protest, and then I'm gonna go buy all the chocolate tomorrow when it's 70% off. So
yeah, flowers
that's my
were like
way.
inflated like like a 7 times multiplier. It's like these are still the same flowers that you could get. Like,
yeah.
Whoever did the marketing behind that, congrats to them.
Brilliant.
But also, I hate you.
Yeah, totally agree. So I'm glad we're on the same page there.
Exactly.
Happy anti-Valentine's Day. I
love my spouse. I love my wife. Right? No, I get that.
So yeah, I can't remember. Oh, so okay. So it's February. So usually roundabout now, military families are either getting word that the Air Force likes to call it vulnerable to move. I think that's adorable. It's so padded and soft. But you usually know that you're in a move year, right? So most of the moves, they try to concentrate them during the summer because most folks have families and the kids are moving or, in between school years. So that's the easiest time to transition a family out of a place. That's become increasingly more problematic, though, because of the stress that we're putting on the moving industry. There are like 450,000 moves that happen every summer. Well, every year, but most of them happen in the summer. Yeah, it's a lot. So usually around now, people have rumors of orders. You might be getting like some preliminary paperwork that says you're going to be moving. And then, I don't know, maybe March, April, you'll get like official orders to move. And that's what you need to be able to start the process. But honestly, even like right after the holidays, like right after December is when you usually have an idea that you're moving and that 2 or 3 places that you could potentially go to. So that's when we're hitting the research. We're going online. We're looking up places. What could our life look like this time 6 months from now?
The spouse, looking at one of those 3 cities saying, hey,
yeah,
I got the indication that I might be moving. Here's where I could be.
Because think about what all we have to reestablish. Like, right? So we have to either look for work, figure out if there are state reciprocity laws, if we hold a certain license, or if we're not going to work, what sorts of activities are the kids going to do, or what are we going to do to get plugged in? I mean, there's so many different considerations, and we don't live on base anymore. I mean, some people do, but 70% of us do not any longer. Like the majority of military families have chosen now to move outside the installation gates boundaries for a plethora of reasons. But
why are there so many different moves? Like, why are you moving? Because when I talk to Erica, she moves like Eric McManus 11 times in 10 years, something ridiculous, right? And so why are military families, why are you guys moving so much?
It's actually a really topical conversation right now that you bring this up. So it's just kind of always been the way the military moves, right? The way the actual like cogs, the military as a career, it's actually the way that service members advance. They want very well-rounded soldiers, sailors, airmen. So they want you to relocate and have different jobs and have different school experiences and all this stuff. So it's actually really great for their careers. It's not fantastic for the families. For the longest time, families have always been considered like camp followers. So like personnel management dates back to like the 40s and 50s, where the family literally just packed up and followed the service member. It was the military's idea was, well, we have a person that we've employed that we have in the service. Whether or not they have a family is of really no importance to us. Like, we'll take care of them. Or let's have them volunteer and fill all of these other roles that we don't have to now pay for or source out. So the spouses typically fell into this role of volunteering to do all of the family support programs, supporting the single soldiers or single servicemen, all these kind of things. What they're not accounting for and not really like moving forward with is the fact that most Americans are dual income, and they're dual income for a reason. It's just cost of living, lifestyle choices, whatever. And the fact that we relocate so frequently actually hinders the military spouse from being able to hold down employment. So there are actually conversations happening now about being able to extend the time that a service member is at a duty station. It gets so tricky though too, because of the culture, like you're expected to move. It's actually kind of like frowned upon if, service member has this resume and it, he's been in one place or one job, or she is not progressing or not gone to this school or done this thing or not deployed. Like arbitrarily deploying is a thing. So anyway, it's just, I don't know. It's just the culture. It's just the way that it's always been. But there are some conversations happening now about like, maybe let's destigmatize homesteading. Like, let's talk about how it could be nice to stabilize the family in one geographic location for more than 2 to 3 years. So I don't know.
Who is that conversation with? Like, is it at a low level that can't actually get executed? Or like, I mean, is this something that could actually happen, right?
I think it's all the way up to the top. I think it needs to start happening. I mean, and there are conversations happening at the top tiers, at least in the Army. I know they just did an AUSA, which is the Association of the United States Army, I think. It's kind of a family support.
I won't hold you to that acronym. I mean, there's so many,
We speak in acronyms and I get them mixed up sometimes. There are big conversations happening with the like all the way up to the top, where it's like once they start to trickle down some of the language and the conversations about like not looking down on the fact that someone's homesteaded or not looking down on the fact that someone hasn't deployed in X many months or years, because there are crucial jobs that need to be had like in single duty stations that or a place like where I live we're at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. There are so many different jobs here and headquarters here that a service member could hop around to all the different jobs to make their resume look as robust as possible, but we could stay here. And we actually have. We've lived here for the majority of our career. They call Fayetteville the black hole because you can get sucked in and never leave. And it's very rare for that to happen.
So you're one of the frowned upon ones.
Yes and no, because of the fact it's not frowned upon the family, right? Like nobody really, that's not a thing. It's the service member. But because my service member has had so many different types of jobs here, his career is still on track, right? So it just all has to do with opportunity, and it just so happens we're here. I would say that probably the area that you're in is a similar situation. There's enough opportunity for the Navy to hop around to different jobs to where you might know people that have been there long enough that you don't even know they're military, right? They've been able to kind of stabilize in some way, specifically on the spouse side. Maybe they've been able to take a career and advance it and actually have some progression in a place because they've been stabilized for so long. Whereas if you're hopping around, you're not going to have that opportunity.
When did Millie start?
We are almost 3 years old, but it actually started from another company called Agent Hero. And Agent Hero was actually the brainchild of 2 veterans. They retired from the Army and didn't want to put another uniform on. So they started a company called Agent Hero. And basically what that is a network of real estate agents who are all veterans or military spouses. So Ken Robbins, our CEO's spouse, Heidi, was a fantastic real estate agent. She was amazing. And then they PCS'd. And she had to start all over at the bottom of a new brokerage. But just because she moved didn't mean
PCS is what?
I'm sorry, permanent change of station.
No worries. I'm gonna have a list. I'm gonna get the dictionary
you need to ring
out.
a bell when I do that.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I don't get to talk to the outside world much. It's usually like in our little community. So.
Well, no one listening here knows anything that you're talking about, so don't worry. PCS, like, I was gonna make up some other acronym, but I couldn't think of it on the spot. So okay,
great.
So she's great real estate agent, but then get PCS, and then
she moves to the DC area. So they're in Arlington, Virginia, and then all of a sudden she's at the bottom of the totem pole in this brokerage. So not only did she have to get relicensed in a new state, because that's always a thing, they're like, oh, well, you don't know the area. And she's like, I can learn the area. That's not hard. So what she did was she started focusing on military clients, so incoming military families, because she had this way of communicating with them. Like we've already established, we have a language, we have a lifestyle, we have this culture that is a little insulated. So she had a way of communicating and connecting with them, and she flew through the ranks doing that. So the idea was, you don't have to be like rooted in a community to be a fantastic real estate agent, but the agents that are moving around, particularly the military spouses, are being kind of penalized for that. So they created this network called Agent Hero. You have to be, a military affiliated real estate agent for, first acceptance into our network. You also have to have a proven track record. You have to have been in business for, at least 5 years. So we have a vetting criteria. And then that way we're able to assure military families that come to us that want to use an agent, we can connect them. We personally pair them. It's almost like a concierge style thing. Because again, it's hard when you move somewhere, you don't know the area, you don't know the reputations of the real estate agents in your area. So you're just kind of shooting in the dark as far as who you're going to choose to work with for a potentially huge investment. By the way, fun fact, did you know that 20% of all home buyers in the United States are military affiliated? 20%.
I mean,
not something you probably know if you weren't.
I didn't know that stat. I did not know that stat. So fun fact, you got me. However, when you think about it, I mean, what's the percentage of people that are military based or military tie-ins in the United States anyway? Is it 20%?
Less than 1%.
Really?
We are insanely underrepresented.
Military is less than 1%, really? Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's
and I'm counting better. Yeah, it is. Yeah, we are.
Is that including kids?
No, they're not home buyers.
Oh, wow, that's
no adults. It's adults.
That's crazy. Okay, yeah. So that stat is wild then.
Isn't it? Okay, so we're underrepresented in the population, but really, really overrepresented in the real estate market. What happens though is that we get really ignored as a market, right? So you would think if there were, 20% of the U.S. home buying market spoke another language, if I were a real estate agent, I would probably dabble in learning some of that language to be able to identify and connect with that audience. So what's happening is we are relying on word of mouth, and we're finding agents that speak our language anyway, which is exactly what Agent Hero is. But then what we've done too, and this is kind of a sidebar, this is a Millie sub product, but what we've also then done is turned our resources that we've made for Millie, that we've created for our military families, and we now offer them to civilian agents who want to learn how to speak the language. So we essentially have a content marketing product for our friends in the community that want to reach us and want to speak empathetically to us, want to be knowledgeable about our lifestyle and the challenges that we're up against with each and every move, and to be able to do that authentically. You
know what I think is really smart about that? If you really dissect what you said, everyone in the world should do that, right? Like not just go and if you're a real estate agent, go and try and work with military families, but like find groups that you have ties to and speak to them the way that they want to be spoken to, right? So like I just wrote a book, and in the book I talk a little bit about like the way you talk to your grandparents are very different than you talk to your best friends, right? It's kind of the same thing that you're saying, where it's like learn that language and respect that person and speak to them in that kind of way, because all my grandparents are passed. I think that's true. They are all passed. I should think about that before I said something. I'm like, oh yeah, they're all gone.
Yeah,
okay. But my wife still has some of hers around, which is great. But when they were alive, I spoke to them, in a very polite kind of way, right?
Right.
My best friend, I might drop F-bombs,
right.
But around grandma, it's like, oh, hello, grandma, it's great to see you. Let me tell you about how I'm doing great in school, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But it's speaking that language, which I think can be that and understanding those things can be very, very powerful. And so I think that's smart for people to do that, especially when you start hearing the numbers. That 20%, right. I mean, that's ridiculous. Why do you think people aren't like they just feel like they can't get the in? Like,
well, I think that's part of it. I think that is probably true to some extent. Like if you are a real estate agent it's almost like they don't even know that the market exists. So you might even be in a place where there isn't a duty station. So if you're farther removed from, like, I can't remember, I don't want to quote an incorrect stat, but there's a military civilian divide. It's kind of what we call it. Like, there are more and more and increasingly more folks that don't have any connection with military, like in their family, in their immediate family, also don't know anyone that's serving. That's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. But so then it's just not top of mind. You're just not thinking about it. It's not something that you would assume. You also, and here's where it gets really important, is because the military families have this really fantastic benefit in the VA loan. So we have access to this loan product where we don't have to put down a down payment. It actually could increase our buying power. We really make great buyers. Like, we're fantastic clients because of the VA loan. But because the VA loan is really complicated, like everything else in our life, if an agent chooses not to really invest a lot of time in learning the VA loan, or maybe don't have that many customers, it's kind of become less popular. There's a ton of people that don't even know that the loan is available to them or that they've earned the benefit. So the presumption is that, hey, Zack, nice to meet you. I'm guessing you've never served in the military. That sucks. My presumption could be, hey, Zack, nice to meet you. Are you a veteran?
Right.
See how that changes it could actually be something that you've done in your life. You don't have to serve 20 years to have amassed these benefits, right? Like, you don't have to spend 20 years to claim a veteran status. Like, so anyway, it's all about framing. And I kind of love what you said about that. Like, it's just a different way of talking to someone, approaching them, and not having like presumptions about them. Like, why not expect more of people than less?
Yeah. I tell people, like, I hate the whole, like, judge a book by its cover.
That's
Don't judge a book by its cover. Let me make sure I say that right. But I think a lot of people do, right? Or someone posts, something on Instagram and they're like, oh, this person's life must be amazing. It's like, no, like, people are posting things to make them appear perfect. Like, it's your job as a human, in my opinion, to, like, get to know that person, create a relationship with them, see what they've done, like, explore that. But, like, don't just be like, oh, that person, like, I have a friend who just got a client and he was like, I never would have prospected this person, but they came and they're spending like $30,000 with him, and he's like, I never would have prospected them, but they came to him, and so there it is, judging a book by its cover the wrong way. And so oftentimes, like, it's like, hey, if you don't do this thing, better things can happen, I think. And so if you create that real relationship with that person, and then what will happen is you have a good experience with that person, and then all of their friends will go and tell Kellie, hey, you should hire her instead of whatever. So
Yep, totally.
So how, with the astounding stat of 450,000 moves a year, which, by the way, seems ridiculous.
Isn't it crazy?
Absolutely
so that's
incredible.
Counting. So let me just break it down a tiny bit. So roughly like 260,000 are active duty service members who are moving from one duty station to another. With their families and all of their household life goods, everything. And then the rest are service members who are separating from the military and getting out and going wherever home might be. So it's not all active duty. It's kind of split half and half, but those numbers are pretty consistent.
Even 250,000 people moves still seems like a lot. It's just, so knowing that there's that, and that's one of the big aspects that Millie is helping with. How are you able to get in front of these people to let them know, like, hey, we can be this guiding hand for you?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just a hustle. We're still kind of a young startup, so we are doing everything we can word of mouth, and all over social media as much as we can. We get involved in local communities. I think one of the coolest things that we have and do. So the resources that we created, we actually, we have these base guides where, you could type in Fort Bragg, or I don't know, what's near you? The Navy base up there. What's it? Oh my God. I should know
Naval
this.
Station Norfolk, Oceana.
Yeah. You guys
Fort
are so
Eustis,
many. Dam Neck is one that's sticking out. Yeah.
Little
so
Creek.
We have
There's a lot.
Fort Story. That's a joint base. So yeah,
Story.
so we actually have this really cool, and you should check it out. We have an installation guide and an area guide for Hampton Roads on the website. So you can go in, say, where are you getting orders to? And then you just scroll through, select the base. You'll find out, stuff about the traffic. We did a whole thing on y'all's bridge tunnels, which are so weird. The tunnels and the go underwater and stuff.
What's so weird about them?
It's weird. It's not normal.
Okay.
It's a bridge that disappears.
Well, that's because
I know
that's
why.
because the big ships gotta go.
It's so scary.
It's not scary. So I know what you are. You're one of those people that slows down so much that causes all the issues. Is that what you're saying?
I don't go near them because I know those people are frowned upon. I'm never up there.
All right. Well, I'm just saying.
You know what we tell people?
Sounds
tell people on the site, like, you need to live where you work because you don't want to do those every day, right? Yeah. Because of traffic, because of all those, because people like me get scared and freeze. And
there's websites for you. Like, how there's like people of Walmart. There's like people of the bridge tunnels.
Stop it. I'm going to link out to that. That's awesome.
I don't know if that's true, but.
No, that's so great. We should make it. So we have this really, really robust website where you can go and look up your exact area, look up your exact duty station, try to figure out where makes sense for your family to live. Every area has like a personality. So there's like the young singles scene, so if you're younger, you want to go clubbing, that sound old, or walk to a coffee shop.
Do they not call it clubbing anymore? I mean,
I don't know. Do they? Probably not.
I haven't been to a club and
listen, I watched Cardi B say last night that people don't say okay anymore. They say her noise. So I don't know what's real anymore.
What's her noise? Like Lord. What's going on? This is the best conversation ever.
Oh, yay. So anyway, you can go to the Hampton Roads site and just get a feel for what you're getting into. And the cool thing about it is that we've done this for over 70 installations across the country, Hawaii, you name it. So we give people kind of some real objective information about where they're moving. We know what decisions folks are trying to make, like right off the bat, like down to where is Target? Like that's literally one of the first questions that we ask in our little circles, in our communities. Like, tell me if there's a Starbucks, tell me if there's a Target, where's the cool karate studios for my kids? Where are the medical hiring areas if I'm a nurse, or, things like that. If you have land and have horses, because people actually travel around with horses in the military, where do I need to live with, if that's a thing. And what's cool is that we did these base guides by hosting focus groups of military spouses at all of these installations. So we sat down and we were like, okay, tell me everything. We sat with it, digested it, and spit it back out on this beautiful webpage with photography that we had military spouses go out and shoot for us. We had them drive commute times. So it's all really relevant information. And it's right there at the touch of their fingertips. So all of those focus groups then went and spread the word about what we're doing, which is awesome. And then another really cool thing that we have is our Scout network. These are essentially TaskRabbits for the military families. So you can hire a scout. Let's pretend like I got orders to go to Fort Hood, Texas, because I have a friend that's moving there soon.
Okay.
I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina. The military doesn't pay for me to get to go on a house hunting trip. So I'm either going to have to come out of pocket, take time off work, find childcare, book my flights, book my hotels, just to go look at houses that I want to look at. The military will give you 10 days of leave while you're moving. So 10 days off, give you, the service member, give them 10 days off to go house hunting. But you have so much other stuff to worry about. And nobody wants to wait until the last minute to go house hunting. Because these are literally the 10 days before the service member has to show up to work. So most people nowadays are trying to secure their lodging, their housing, before the move actually happens. So now we're talking like the March, April timeframe. People want to go ahead and start signing leases. Or looking at houses to purchase and get that ball rolling. So what you can do if you can't get out there to see the properties beforehand, and remember I said most of us, almost 3/4 of us, are living off the installation. We want somebody to have eyes and ears on the property for us. We just need, because we sign sight unseen all the time, but that's scary and it's often penalized by the property managers. Like they'll charge you more for that. because, you don't want to get there and then back out of it. And then, that's a headache for everyone. So what you can do though, is you can hire a military spouse scout to go and like FaceTime with you through the house and point out everything, show you what's across the street, show you what didn't make the listing photos.
So like, okay, so I'm on the site. So I go to find a base. I go to Fort Hood because that's where that's where you're moving. Hopefully that's not the real case for you. And then you're saying you find something that you like. And then if you can't get out there because it's 2,000 miles away, you're saying then go to find a scout. And then find a scout is basically someone FaceTiming you around the house. That's pretty cool.
It's awesome.
Because I hear those stories all the time, how people are like buying houses, oftentimes without the spouse being there. Yeah. But you're saying a lot of times people are even renting and buying places sight unseen, just being like, yo, I got to get there and move, tell her where to go. And that's crazy.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And what's sad though, is that it actually happens a lot and it doesn't work out well. So you get there and it's a terrible situation. Maybe you're allergic to animals and you walk in and it's like knocks you over with cat pee smell. Like that's actually happened. That's a real story that we've heard. Like you cannot smell cat pee in photos. Right. So it's just little things like that.
So do you guys take a cut? So like I'm looking at like a property walkthrough move-in by Vivian's, right? $75 a job. You guys take a cut out of that, and that's one of the revenue models?
Just a little. Just enough to run the platform, honestly, because we host the platform. And then, it's like 15%, but then the scout keeps the rest. And those are just like base kind of guideline prices. Most of the jobs that our scouts are doing are custom. So a potential tenant might have 3 or 4 properties they want the scout to look through. So then what she'll do is then create like a custom package for that customer. Another really cool way that people are using scouts is if you are a landlord and you're self-managing your property, you can hire a scout to help you do kind of one-off tasks instead of having to enlist a property manager for an ongoing contract, 10% each month or whatever it is. And all you need is somebody to like swap out keys for the new tenant, or take some photos after a walkthrough. Then you can hire the scouts to do that too. Because in the military community, a lot of us do self-manage our properties when we have them, and then you just rent out to other military families. So it's just an easier way. Instead of having to like fly back to your property, you could just hire the scout to do stuff for you.
You talk about social media being something that's been very powerful for you. Is there a specific strategy that works for you?
You know what we've just started, and I'm loving it, is doing Facebook Live streamed interviews in our group. So we just started a private group, or closed, excuse me. And we are, I'm just hosting. So I call them base side chats. So you remember fireside chats from FDR? And like, Silicon Valley uses them and stuff too. But we're doing base side chats. And essentially what it is I'm saying that it's bringing you a voice of calm to the chaos. So what happens is a family gets orders. I actually just got a text last night from a friend of mine telling me she got orders to Fort Hood, which is why it's fresh on my mind. And she's freaking out. She's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, okay, let's calm down. Let's take a breath. I'm going to bring someone into the group, probably Vivian, who you just pulled up. I'm going to do an interview with her, and you get to ask her whatever questions you want in the comments. I'm going to ask her the things that I ask for the focus groups. But then you're going to hear directly from someone that loves living there, that has found the good in the area, like has found the cool places for this, that, and the other, and kind of give all like the insider knowledge, the local sort of insights that we aren't privy to until we've already lived there for a long time. So we kind of just like skip a lot of the acclimation process in that way. And so far they've been growing great. We've done about 5 of them. I'm going to pull them down. I'm going to push them out as a podcast. I'm going to put them on YouTube and somewhere on the website, all kinds of fun stuff. So.
I think that's tremendous. I'm a big proponent in, I think Facebook Live is one of the greatest tools ever created.
I love it.
I think it's great, connects with people, but I'll dissect that even more because then you said something else I think is really powerful. It's like you and I have this conversation. Let's imagine it actually is coffee in North Carolina, and only you and I have that 30 minutes and that's
Cheers.
It. Cheers.
Yeah.
Mine's empty, but cheers, right?
Yeah. Mine too.
And actually, I think I drank 10 cups today. So
too many, yeah.
Anyway, so let's say we're actually having that conversation. I believe that the overwhelming majority of conversations could be recorded and documented and then presented to the world to see and learn from, yet we don't do. And so that's one of the reasons why I do this, is because it's like, hey, there's so many things that are in this conversation that will only be heard by 2 people if we don't record it and distribute it out. And so I think that's so powerful, and I think the people are so like, they're like, oh, I think I had the aha moment when I was like, oh, that was really good. I should have recorded that. And then I kept saying that over and over again. I was like, I really should just start recording these things.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
whether it's something like this, like this show cost me basically a microphone that was $40. I used the laptop that I use, and the tool that I used to download was probably $40. So I'm looking at $80 there to record this conversation hundreds, hopefully thousands of times. Yep. And then I can be the distribution arm on the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the podcasts of the world. And I think that's even more powerful. Even so much that now I just bought this thing just for audio at this point, where I just have a microphone that hooks up to my phone. I clip it up to my because I do like a lot of talks, and not everyone has equipment. And a lot of things in my book I talk about, I want people to be able to do for free or cheap, like cheaper than the price of...
Speaking my language, I love it.
Cheaper than something at like a Happy Meal at the Golden Arches. You like that? Yeah. And so like I don't want... I feel like there's so much like content out there that's like, oh, go buy this $10,000 thing and your life will be memorable. It's like, no, I'm going to remove the clutter from you and show you it actually can be this easy. So I bought a $60 mic that clips to my phone. I clip it here and I document all of the process that I'm doing. And so then people can hear it. But even the bigger piece of that is I can then review it too to learn my mistakes, or where maybe I did something good so I can double down on that or learn from that kind of technique. And so I think documenting is something that not enough people do, not enough people talk about. And so I love that you're doing the Facebook Lives. I think that's going to be super powerful. But I think the even more powerful thing with that is then downloading it and just distributing it to other platforms as well, because not everyone's on Facebook Live. You know, there are still, 4 people in the world that are terrified of Facebook. And
no. That number is much bigger in the military community.
Even better. The 400 people. But there's a lot of people, right? And actually, who knows what's going to happen with Facebook, right? Like, is it going to be, I don't think it's really going to go away for a while, but, who knows? But recycling the same piece of content in a plethora, you used the word first, I'll use it again, different ways, I think it's powerful, and I think it's important, and I think too many people think that their content is going to be seen that first time that they post it on that one platform, and that's complete and utter BS.
Well, that's the whole reason we're doing it, right? Because we don't have a huge ad budget. So I'm trying my best to figure out how to work around.
You shouldn't have to spend that kind of money. Like, we have the tools. Everyone thinks that, if I just spend all this money, I'll get this result. It's like, no. Like,
not necessarily.
You have the things that you need. You're just not using them.
Right.
So.
Well, the reality is, I can't write all this stuff down. Like, so we have a blog, and we use it, but I'm starting to veer away from it just because it's like, if I can print out the transcription on the blog page with my video, because the reality is nobody's going to read the blog. I don't care how awesome it is. Like, hardly anybody reads.
The thing I will tell you about that, though, is that at this point in the world, the search engines can't understand what this video is saying. So that's why the transcription is important, right?
Transcription,
So there's a tool called rev.com. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I have.
Okay. Yeah. So they have they have another tool now that's basically even cheaper called Tumi, Tumi, I think. It's their 10 cent a minute. So rev.com is basically the tool that you give them the video, the audio, and they'll do the transcription for it for like $1 a minute or something like that. Or if they want it faster, it'd be $2 or $3 a minute, which, by the way, anyone listening, these things always come out like within like a couple minutes anyway. So the $1 a minute is fine. Yeah. So Tumi, it's something like that. They have like some sort of like dictation software that automatically does it. It's almost perfect, but it's like 10 cents a minute.
Does you can understand Southern though?
Your Southern, no. Other Southerns, no as well. But I don't know. But I have a buddy who has the same challenge where he's like, I have all these ideas, I want to record them and then just get them out in text. How can I do it quick? And so he's like, I just got a 60-minute talk done for $6.
Wow,
that's powerful. But then you can take that huge. And that can be your blog. Tie that to the video, and then because you want to make sure that you have this thing that I call repeatable, searchable content, right? Where social media is really whatever is popular right now, and it's very hard to find that popular thing from 2 years ago without like an infinite scroll. Where if that thing is on the search engine correctly, you'll be able to find that a lot.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Right, and so think of social media as the thing that's popular or hot right now. Mm-hmm. And then your website that is like more controlled by by scraping of what I'm getting technical, of what it actually is saying as this thing that can help you. That's why websites that have, content that are 15 years old pop up first, is because it's pulling that data that the website and understands what's there. So I would, in 2019, we're not there yet. At some point, websites will be able to search engine will understand what video is saying, but not to the extent of it now. So you definitely want to make sure that's tagged.
I'm so guilty of like scrimping on my YouTube descriptions too.
We all are.
So because it's just more. Yeah, it's the reason I went on the video in the first place, because I can get it out quicker that way than like, because I feel like you can be less polished on a video. It doesn't have to be like edited, because people are forgiving, especially when you have random posters on your wall. They're super forgiving. Like,
yeah. I got you. Is that you throwing shade at my rock poster? I got it.
No, I love it.
I'm gonna send you one.
Please don't. Yeah, it's easier because I like to write a lot. So I have the challenge. I mean, everybody does, but the challenge of keeping it short and succinct. And also, like, I noticed too, when you were talking about like Google doesn't understand, I write blog titles like a chapter in a book, like they're more poetic. And I've had to really get away from that and go back to 5 tips for packing your kitchenware. And I'm like, but that's what the search engines understand. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've had to like revert to. And I think it's, I have so many thoughts on it. Maybe
I think you can get away with a YouTube description that's a little shorter as long as your tags and keywords are okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the description doesn't have to be super long as long as you have. There's definitely a game to play in it, right? And so making sure. So I don't think your description has to be the Bible verse or a Bible chapter, or whatever.
So so we have these base guides, and we were actually just looking up the Google rankings and everything, like based on some of the keywords and tags. I am not our company's tech person. You will be happy to know that. But we were looking and comparing, and it was like he was kind of tearing apart my writing, because I wrote most of the content for the base guides, and he was like, okay, well, you need to say Fort Sam Houston or whatever, which is actually not even called that anymore. It's JBSA, Joint Base San Antonio, Fort Sam. It's like this whole, so we tried to get away from saying that because it's clunky and gaudy. So I used like, colloquial references, or like I was a little more like floral with my language, and I didn't just call it Fort Sam Houston, Fort Sam Houston, Fort Sam Houston, Fort Sam, but that's what Google wants. Because that's how, if somebody searches for Fort Sam Houston, that's how it's going to come up in the search rankings. And I'm like, it's like forcing me to write badly, I think. So that's a struggle.
Well, I think as long as you have it first, I think you can then, I believe, and these things are changing all the time. So, unless you're constantly searching for it, I believe Google now recognizes similar words as the same. So like if it's Fort Sam Houston, then you have an acronym for that. And then you have other words that are associated with that. I believe now it's smart enough, I'm saying that in quotation marks, to understand that those things are similar.
Okay, cool.
But don't quote me on that one. Don't tase me, bro. Like don't.
I think we've established we're not quoting anything from anyone.
My friend says everything I say is a Zack stat, which means we don't know if it's true. I'm like, thanks. Like I was fake news before fake news.
Fake news. I love it. Yeah.
I'm kidding. What's something about you that most people don't know about?
Oh God, this is like the icebreaker at the party. So I.
Give us the good one. Come on, we want to hear it.
Well, I danced with Vanilla Ice once, back in my clubbing days.
Okay, was it like Vanilla Ice when he was popular, or like Vanilla Ice when he was like doing construction?
It was like, help me, my life is crumbling kind of tour. But it was fun. I got to say that I danced. I actually climbed up on stage and pushed a couple girls out of the way to be able to say that I did.
Interesting.
And he was nasty. Love you, Vanilla Ice.
That is now going to be the headline of this post.
Oh,
Kellie.
I don't know. Wait, can I change it? Hold on.
Is nasty.
Vanilla Ice. He was. It was gross. He was struggling. More power to him. Yeah, it was at the Warehouse in Charleston. It was this great little dive joint.
I think that might be the greatest answer to that question ever.
No way.
It's pretty good.
Come on.
My dream was to see Vanilla Ice. I then push over girl on stage to get to him and realize that he wasn't what he once was.
huge disappointment. Yeah, it's actually because he was on this like pedestal on the stage. So he was like, it wasn't, I mean, maybe this big, right? And so he was scrawny. So he's taken up a little bit of space, and there were all these women like kind of like trying to hang on to the like anyway, I like shoved them all off, had my 5 seconds, and then got down. But there were a couple really angry people about it.
Name more than one Vanilla Ice song.
No, Ice Ice Baby. That's all I got. That's it. That's the only thing I know him for. I was literally that girl. It's fine. I'm fine with that. Don't judge me.
I was making sure that like maybe there wasn't more, and clearly
no,
isn't.
I am not a true fan.
There you go. What's something about the military, maybe military spouses, that you think that the general public or the civilians should know?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, this is great. So because we were talking about employment challenges a little bit, and that's kind of the exposure that you've had with Lindsay and Erica and so on, and Jess even, we are fantastic employees. Like, we are beyond fantastic. So a lot of the misperceptions and misconceptions about military spouses, or especially let's say you're in a military dense area and maybe you're an employer and you are hesitant to hire a military spouse because you think, oh, well, she's just going to move away. Also, we should say he or she, because, you know, though we make up the majority, you know, there are definitely tons of male spouses out there. Please don't judge our resumes, first of all. Yep, they are a you know what show. Like, they are crazy to try to figure out like what rhyme or reason. I have worked in so many different industries. It's not even funny. You cannot draw a straight line through my resume. But what that means for me, and the way that I frame it as, is I have amassed so many different skill sets in so many different industries. Like, there's literally nothing that I feel is too far out of reach for me. And you know what? If I don't know it, I will learn it, as proven by every promotion that I've had in each of these jobs. Because the way that I've always approached employment is, you know what? I know you feel like you're taking a risk on me because you think I'm going to flake and move away, or I'm going to like, you know, cry every day if my husband deploys, or not have childcare. Like, I already have a babysitter set up. He's gone right now. You wouldn't even know it. And, you know, these are all the things that I have accomplished in my career. So as long as you'll give me the chance to get in front of you and let me tell you and prove to you how cool of an asset I am and how nimble and loyal. By the way, I'm probably more loyal than the average millennial now, which I think I'm an old millennial, but still, we have longer tenures now. I mean, most people are changing jobs of, 18 months or something?
So it's interesting that you brought this up, because I've talked to Erica a lot about this, because she's the one
really
that kind of gives me. And so I'm a big believer in building relationships, right? I don't think that you should be trying to hit a home run on the first date, on the first conversation with someone. Like, most people don't want to be sold. I don't know anyone that wants to be sold to the first time they meet them. Yet oftentimes in networking scenarios, that is what people do, right? And so when you think about careers, the way I like to articulate it is, I think the average overall is every 40 months people are moving on to a different job. Okay. Right? That's all of them combined.
Okay.
Younger or older, it could be a little higher, a little lower, lower, it depends. But I think that number is somewhere like 38, 40 months, and I think Erica gave me that number. So imagine that you meet that person. So knowing that those people are leaving every 3.5 years anyway, like, that's kind of what you're talking about anyway. What's 24, 30 months or 36 months? It's basically the same thing. So, like, data doesn't lie. Like, these people are leaving careers anyway, right? And so imagine if you're talking to someone and you meet them at a networking event, and all they do is try to sell to you the first time you meet them. And you're meeting them when you're on month 39 and a half of your 40, and you have a really bad first impression of them because all they were trying to do is sell you. Then you start this other job somewhere else, month 40, because you're cycling through that whole cycle. Yeah. And what that person is selling, actually, you could have bought had you not been a donkey, had that person not been a donkey, right? Yeah. And so it's really interesting to me that, like, we manipulate these numbers to make it look like military spouses are like a joke, when actually they're more skilled. They can work remotely. They probably can work in some sort of contract kind of way too, which is in my opinion is probably better than normal employees.
And listen, we don't need healthcare. So
don't need help. There's all these other things that are like better for it. And so like I wasn't necessarily on one side or the other before, but like Erica is really throwing the data at me and made me be like, no, this makes a lot of sense. Like, why wouldn't you? And Jess too. Like, why wouldn't you want to be a part of something like that when, like, that person is going to try and get the work done quicker, more effectively, efficiently? Like, than anyone else, and so it's
no, and I mean,
it needs to be sold more. It needs to be talked about more.
I know.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we do so much work in the military spouse space, trying to help equip military spouses for seeking employment and tracking down employment. There are a ton of really great conversations happening in the licensing side of things for lawyers, especially, and they've taken charge in that. They're doing the Military Spouse Lawyers sort of association is like kicking ass and taking names over there. But we still have a long way to go for nursing, for, teachers, for all that stuff. So what happens is the folks that have these licenses that have to continually, change over, they're just leaving the workforce. They're like, screw it. Or there are people like me who have worked retail. Like, I have gone backwards so many times in my career, gotten nothing wrong with retail, but I had gotten past that. And then I'm back to, some meagerly hourly wage because that was literally all I could get. And it's like, okay, fine, hire me at the front desk, but I want an evaluation in 30 days and I want to know what's on the table for me because this is not my long-term thing. So, and
there's this hunger though that's not talked about either. Like I can hear the fierceness in you, and I see this in others as well, where it's like, we're hungry to do more. Just give us this chance. Like you just said, well, I'll do that bitch job for 30 days, and then I'll show you why I could be.
I don't know though, Zach, because it's rare. It's not. I'm not gonna say it's rare. It's not common because there are so many other circumstances in our lives that kind of beat us down. So it gets exhausting, and really, I mean, we can survive on one income. It's not well though.
But you're hungry. You want more.
Yeah.
You want to do
exactly. It. Yeah. So yeah, I think if the word got out, and there are tons of great organizations getting the word out. Hiring Our Heroes it's the U.S. Chambers initiative. It started as a veteran hiring initiative, and what they did is there's actually a tax incentive for employers to hire veterans and fill a quota. If they would do that for military spouses, we wouldn't have the problems we have. But military spouses have something like a 24% unemployment rate, which is like obscene. So there are organizations like Hiring Our Heroes through the U.S. Chamber who have created a military spouse division who are working to communicate with employers. And they've had a lot of success with big corporate employers, Starbucks, Hilton, Microsoft, folks like that. And creating these military spouse hiring initiatives and like educating them on what it means to hire a military spouse, and then also cultural competency within the organization and creating affinity groups in the organizations. Deloitte has a great one where it's like this little club of military spouses, and they're all able to kind of like network and circulate ideas and educate, their employer, essentially, like everyone in the organization, on all the good things they're doing and all the good things they're capable of. So there are fantastic things happening. It's a grind, we're working on it. So
love it. What's something I haven't talked about that we should?
Cool. What's something we haven't talked about? I mean, I don't know. Are you into personality typing?
What is that?
Like, do you know like your Myers-Briggs? I'm going to guess you don't know this one obscure system that I'm about to throw at you.
I don't. I mean, I know where I am on the DISC profile.
DISC. Okay. Then I don't know if it's worth calling or talking about. There's one called the Enneagram that you should look up.
Spelling?
ENNEAGRAM.
Okay. Is this the one where like I figure out what kind of animal I am?
Nope, they're numbers. It's 9 numbers.
Okay, well, which one is the best?
There's no best. So
why would I want to play a game?
No. Wait.
I want to play the game.
You're a 3. You're the achiever, because that would be a 3 question. Which one's the best? I want to be that one.
I don't want to be 3. I don't like that number. But
great.
3 is a prime number, and I like to do things that are weird, so I'm cool with that.
Well, then maybe that's a 4. So the romantic individualist.
I'm not romantic.
I'm not supposed to type you. That's breaking the rules. But that was hilarious. That was such a 3 thing to say.
Interesting.
Yeah, look it up.
I think I've lost. I've lost. All right. So what are you on that list?
I'm a 5. I'm an observer, investigator. So I want to lose myself in a website and know everything I can possibly know about a thing, and then move on and learn everything else that I can learn about another thing. So yeah, duty station.
So on the DISC profile, that would be probably a C then.
Okay. I don't know DISC. What is it? What does it
Okay,
stand
so
for?
DISC, I think the most general way to say it is that there's like introverts and extroverts.
Okay.
The extroverts are like D's and I's.
Okay.
And then the other side, S and C's, are introverts. Now, that is a very generalized, stereotypical statement. But I believe C's like want a lot of details. And a lot of like I's and D's are just like, let's just get this done.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
So like
yeah.
you go to a landing page and it says, I can give you this, give me this. That is like what someone on the D side, I side is just like, just let's do it. And then on your side, which is the 5s, in your case, but would be a C, which I can't remember what it's called, wants all the data.
Yeah.
Give
I
me
can't.
everything.
I'm the worst
I'm
at
like,
buying
no, I don't need all that.
appliances, or like I agonize over purchases. I will look up all the consumer reviews, like, but I don't have buyer's remorse. Like if I've finally arrived at a decision, it's done. My husband, he's an 8 on the Enneagram, or like, I don't know. He's a gut type. So the Enneagram also breaks down to gut, heart, head. So the way you like your center of intelligence, so how you make decisions. So I'm a head person, so I got to think through it all. And then there's heart people that go with their feelings, and then there are gut people that just go and do it. And he's a gut person, so he's like he'll buy something and then like regret it forever.
I'll buy cheap things. I will buy cheap things just quickly. But someone recently called me a minimalist, and I was like, that's really interesting. Maybe I am.
Huh? Do you get rid of stuff easily?
I don't buy a lot. I don't buy a lot of things.
You don't buy enough to get rid of it. Oh yeah, so maybe.
I think it's so I wear like the same thing every day, like jeans and a black T-shirt, and so I think that's where this person was going with it. Actually, I wore military-inspired gear today. Do you know Sean Evangelista from 30 Seconds Out?
No, tell me more.
Okay, so he used to live where I live, but then moved to Idaho. He was a SEAL, and I believe the story is he moved to Idaho because he fell off a building and hit his head, and like this area's humidity or whatever, he couldn't handle it, so he had to go somewhere colder.
During his service, or
yeah, but I don't think it was definitely while he was serving, but I don't think it was like while in combat.
Yeah. Okay. Just an accident. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think he fell on his head from like a 30 foot thing, not 30 stories.
Okay.
And one of the things that he did to help heal was he started doing art, and so he would like take like these images,
awesome.
which is I don't even know which one I'm wearing. Positive vibrations. And so
cool.
Yeah, so he would create things like this, and then he started printing them on shirts, and like has sold a ton of them now, and like he's got a really big kind of following and stuff like that, and really cool dude, really rad dude.
That's awesome.
And so that was probably the first time I really got, from a business side of it, got into things with the military. And he was the first person ever to kind of explain stuff. So he was getting out when I first met him. He had about a year left. And he said that he was overseas, I guess, and he was around a campfire with his other SEALs. And they're all like, what are we going to do? Like, we're getting out. We don't know what to do. And I happened to be hosting a startup event. And he saw this ad or something about it. And he was like, I need to go to that. And he was like, we need stuff like this. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And so that made me realize and get energized about that kind of group or this group. And, it's cool that, they do so much for us, and to be able to like lightly provide something back was pretty cool. So, yeah.
And that's a pretty common, like we're probably 4 or 5 years out from my husband retiring. And it's a conversation we have often, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because it's your identity. Like it's everything. So even just translating what it is that you did in the military into what you could potentially do in the civilian world is like a huge thing. So that's awesome. I'm glad you do that. Thanks.
Yeah. All right. That's it for this episode. You guys can check out Millie at Millie, MILLIE.com. That's GoMillie.com. Really appreciate my time with Kellie, Artis. It was a lot of fun. And hopefully you guys can check them out, because you should. Where their tagline, currently on their website, bringing military families home. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Give the team at Millie a shout out. Follow them on all of their favorite socials. And if you are listening and you are a military family and you need help, GoMillie.com. And until next time, Appreciate you and have a wonderful day. As always, The Rock is watching down on me. And if you want The Rock to look down on you, all you have to do is buy your own Rock poster and put it where he can look down at you. That's it for now. I'm Zack Miller. Peace.